Yashodanandana Braja Janandana Yashodanandana Braja Janandana All right, so I'm having some trouble here too. Okay. Okay, so reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 24. So word for word. I guess I could start. Hastau. Raruhatu. I'm going to make it bigger. Okay. Yeah, I already got it up. Tasya. Nana. Karma. Chikir Shaya. Tayaho. Tu. Balavan. Indraha. Adanam. Ubaya Ashayam. Hastaruhatustasya. Nana karma chikir shaya. Tayostu balavan indra. Adanam ubayashayam. Hatustasya. Nana karma chikir shaya. Tayostu balavan indra. Adanam ubayashayam. Hastaruhatustasya. Nana karma chikir shaya. Tayostu balavan indra. Adanam ubayashayam.
Hastaururuhatustasya. Nana karma chikirshaya. Tayostu balavan indra. Adanam ubhayashayam. Hastaururuhatustasya. Nana karma chikirshaya. Tayostu balavan indra.
Danam upayashayam. All right. Mataji's?
Nana karma chikirshaya. Tayostu balavan indra. Adanam ubhayashayam. Hastaururuhatustasya. Nana karma chikirshaya. Tayostu balavan indra. Adanam ubhayashayam.
All right, word for word. Hasto,
Hastau,
the hands.
hands.
Ruru Hatuhu,
Ruru hatuhu,
manifested.
manifested.
Tasya,
Tasya,
his.
his.
Nana,
Nana,
various.
various.
Karma,
Karma,
work.
work.
Chikir Shaya,
Shaya,
being so desirous.
being so desirous.
Tasyaho,
Tayo,
of them,
of them.
two.
Two.
However,
However,
Balavan,
Balavan,
to give strength.
give strength.
Indraha,
Indraha,
the demigod in heaven.
demigod in heaven.
Adanam,
Adhanam,
activities of the hand.
activities of the hand.
Ubaya Ashrayam,
Bhaya ashrayam,
dependent on both the demigod and the hand.
dependent on both the demigod and the hand.
Okay, translation purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Thereafter, when the Supreme Person desired to perform varieties of work, the two hands and their controlling strength and Indra, the demigod in heaven, became manifested, as also the acts dependent on both the hands and the demigod. In every item, we can note with profit that the sense organs of a living entity are never independent at any stage. The Lord is known as the Lord of the senses, Hrishikesha. Thus, the sense organs of the living entities are manifested by the will of the Lord, and each organ is controlled by a certain type of demigod. No one, therefore, can claim any proprietorship of the senses. The living entity is controlled by the senses. The senses are controlled by the demigods, and the demigods are the servants of the Supreme Lord. That is the arrangement in the system of creation. The whole thing is controlled ultimately by the Supreme Lord, and there is no independence either of the material nature or of the living entity. The illusion living entity who claims to be the Lord of his senses is under the clutches of the external energy of the Lord. Stop. Okay, you want to connect?
Yeah, you can just keep reading.
Keep reading?
Yeah.
As long as the living entity continues to be puffed up by his tiny existence, he is to be understood to be under the stringent control of the external energy of the Lord. And there is no question of liberation from the clutches of illusion, Maya. However, much one may declare himself a liberated soul. Om Gyanitamanandasya Gananjanjana Salakaya Chakshorunmeditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamanam Shri Guru Vaishtamam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganavtam Mitam Tam Shajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishtabhadan Sahagana Naritam Shri Vishakam Mitam Cha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Shrimante Bhakti Vikas Swaminiti Namane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Shrimante Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunivari Pasyat Tarda Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, before I begin, so today is the appearance of Sri Purushottamam Das Thakur. So just read a couple of things here. This is a couple, there's a good bit, but I won't read all this. So this is quoted as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. I don't know exactly where this is from. It just is quoted as saying it's from him. But there's another quote also which kind of says the same thing. So, reading. The 23rd and 24th prominent devotees of Nityananda Prabhu were Shadashiv Kaviraj and his son Purushottam Das, who was the 10th Gopal. Since birth, Purushottam Das Thakur was merged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and he always engaged in childish play with Lord Krishna. And then this is from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Antya Kanda, chapter 5, text 741 to 742. I wonder if that's actually correct, because I don't remember them being 700 verses in one chapter. Anyways. Shadashiv Kaviraj was greatly fortunate. His son was named Sri Purushottam Das. Purushottam Das Thakur had no concern for his external body. Sri Nityananda Prabhu always resided within the core of his heart. And then this is a quote from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Just one second. Shadashiv Kaviraj was a great personality. Purushottam Das was his son. From birth, Purushottam Das was absorbed in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and he always engaged in childish play with Lord Krishna. His son was Sri Kanu Thakur, a very respectable gentleman. His body was saturated with love, with nectar of love for Krishna. So, and there's a couple more slokas, but the point is that Purushottam Das was a dear associate of Nityananda Prabhu, and he was a pure devotee, and he was always engaged in the service of Nityananda Prabhu, and we could safe to say that he was always thinking of him. So it's probably mentioned, there might be some more things mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, or it might just be one thing. But whether it's a sentence or whether it's many, many books, there's so many things that can be said about these great devotees of the Lord, and we can remember him on this day and receive his mercy. So continuing to the verse today, so hastauruhu hatastasya nana karma chikirshaya tasyo tu balavan indra adanam ubayashrayam. So thereafter, the Supreme Person desired to perform varieties of work. The two hands and their controlling strength and Indra, the demigod in heaven, became manifested, as also the acts dependent on both the hands and the demigod. So, this continuing, so the previous verse we spoke of was about the, I believe, the touch sensation, or physical characteristics. So softness, hardness, warm, cold, light, in the sense of weight, heaviness, sensation, the skin, hairs on the body, all those different things. So today we're talking about the hands and the and also the hands and the strength is Balavan, and then also Indra, the king of heaven. So the hands are pretty important. Unless you don't have hands, then your hands aren't important, because you don't have them, and then whatever, you just live life without them. But to get things done, I mean, it's we don't really think about these things so much, because it's not, anyway, it's being discussed here in Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada, the point of it all is that we're not independent in any stage, but the hands, we do so many different things with them. And I think there's some atheistic theory that, that once monkeys develop hands properly and thumbs and things like that, then they were able to hold things, and eventually they were able to build big skyscraper buildings and complex machines and things like that. But then initially they were able to use their hands to build things, and then I don't know, and then hunters and gatherers and all these amazing ideas roam about, and then packs and stuff like that, and then I don't know, and then eventually they develop a system of language. So anyways, we don't accept that. But what we can appreciate is that the hands are very important. And so everybody uses their hands for different things. Some people use their hands better than others. And so many things are accomplished by the hands. For instance, so many things. I mean, to drive a car, you use your hands. To chant japa, you need your hands. You don't necessarily need your hands to chant japa. You can chant without it. But the holding of the beads, you need your hand. And people do amazing things with their hand in the material sphere. For the most part, all of the instruments of music, you need your hands to do that with, except singing. But whatever, the flute. I mean, there's all the instruments. I'm not the name of the flute, clarinet, trombone, trumpet, piano, all the different things. Drums. You need your hands to play those things. And then people, by utilizing the strength in their hand, and then also with practice and determination, and then utilizing their brain and intelligence and things, they're able to create wonderful things. And so that ability to use the hands comes from the demigods, ultimately from Krishna. And then also to this musical ability that's also there manifested in Krishna. It's mentioned that, I believe in the beginning of this canto, that the different birds are like the sense of the Supreme Lord's musical taste or notation or things like that. So people are able to take these hands, which is, whatever, there's 5 fingers on it, and then do different things with it. And then also, too, people, just besides even like creating music, people use their hands to fight. That's one of the duties of the Kshatriyas. They protect, and then they fight, and they're heroic. And then, so even with that, there's so many different weapons that one could wield with one's hands. Generally nowadays it's just a 45. But even within that, within the scope, the realm of guns, there's different types of guns. There's revolvers, and then semi-automatic guns, assault rifles, and different things like that. Shotguns. So there's so many different varieties in which you can engage your hands and work. But previously, people, they didn't. They had guns back in the day, but they were like more primitive. Anyways, there's like one story about one guy. I think it was in the beginning of one of the wars, but he went to go and try to like assassinate somebody, and so he like taped like some 20-something guns together to like kill somebody, and then the guns like backfired and mostly hit him, and then it also hit their opponent. But anyways, previously it was understood that guns weren't, like if you shot them, there was a chance they might blow up in your hand or like shoot back at you because they weren't so refined. But even before that, with like weapons and stuff, well, not weapons, but guns, and people usually fought with like swords and things. And then we see that in this mentioned in Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata, that people, they would use, swords, what is this, Parshuram, he used an axe. He fought with that. I don't think that was a wide thing. I think he kind of just used an axe. But he used an axe, and then we see Arjuna famously had this Gandiva bow. Krishna also has his bow. He had a sword also, because that's when he used that sword. He cut off part of Rukmi's hair and cut off his mustache. And then there's different weapons also. There's like this chopper, which is also kind of like sword, but it's pretty good for like chopping people's heads off. And there's different weapons like that. And the mace also, that's pretty famous. And there's a plow. Though that's not a weapon generally used in war, Balaram uses that from time to time. The club is there, and then mace. So then we also see that when it's mentioned, maybe it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, but that it's mentioned that Bhimasena, he was more strong than, he had like the strength of 10,000 elephants is mentioned, but he was stronger than Duryodhana. But Duryodhana had better technique and skill than Bhima, because Duryodhana learned from Balaram. So another name of Balaram is Duryodhana Guru, because he's the guru of Duryodhana, the arms guru. And then anyways, that's a whole topic in and of itself, that how did Balaram favor Duryodhana like that. And so I've heard my spiritual master say that Duryodhana, in one sense, was probably like a devotee in some aspect. Otherwise, why would like Balaram go and associate with him in that sense? But I heard that in some class. So one can have. So anyways, the point is that manipulating these hands to do different things. So Duryodhana was expert in holding the weapon. And then we see also too, with like fighting and stuff like that. There's different like techniques one can use to like defend oneself, and then one may come at one with a weapon, but then there's a way to like counteract that, so then that strength is like diverted, so then that person may use so much force to come down, and then it's diverted, and then that person falls to the ground or whatever, and then anyways you could take the opportunity to kill the opponent. And so all over the world, people would these warrior classes of men, they would utilize these different arms and trains and things like that, and be first-class soldiers. And there's so many different weapons like that, and different things which utilize the hands. And then also too, and then anyways, people, they fly planes and stuff like that, and they utilize their hands and things, and it takes intelligence and stuff. And we mentioned driving the car, so many different things. I mean, you can go on and on. Even too, just within the hands, though it's a different spear. I never messed with it so much, but it's a famous thing, this palmistry, reading the hands. I forget what it's called in Hindi, hasta, maybe Reika or something. But then the people, they know the science of looking at the hand and reading the line, just like that devotee was telling us yesterday, that one guy in his village had some special, maybe not benediction, but anyways, he has a special ability where apparently he had like this Garuda lines on his hands, but he would just grab snakes. And the snakes, I guess, would be afraid or something like that. So anyways, there's so many different things out there. So then anyways, people can look at the hands and they know the science and they can see and look at the lines and then see like, oh, you'll live this long or you'll have this many kids or you'll die with this. Anyways, I don't really know. So you'll be healthy. So pretty much what it boils down to is like, you either going to get married or not get married. You're going to have so many ex-kids. You got a lot of money. Or like that. You're either going to enjoy or suffer. That's pretty much what that it boils down to with all the astrology and palmistry and all those different things. You looks like you got a lot of enjoyment coming for you or you don't. That's pretty much that's pretty much the summation of that. One time, His Holiness Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, he was joking with somebody, and he told them, I'm a great, I don't remember exactly, but he said, I think he said, I'm a great, palmstress, I can read the palms or something, I'm very good at that. And he's like, let me see your palms. So then he, showed, so the person showed him his palms. He's like, I can see in your future that you're going to die. so he was joking that you're going to have to suffer, and ultimately die. So that's true, that's everybody's future. And you don't have to be a great astrologer, coming in a line of so many generations of astrologers and studied for 50, 60 years to understand that you're going to die. Anyway, so much can be said about that. So there's all this science with the hands and using the hands, and then, whatever, and the fingers and all those different things. So the hand is an important aspect of just living in this world. So when the Supreme Personality of Godhead desired to do whatever, the desire to perform work was there, then the hands were manifested. And so also having the hands is not enough because you need to have some strength, some Shakti. What does it say here? So Balavan. So you need strength to use the hands. And if one was an atheist, like some guy in some part of the world who was thinking that, that you need, that Balaram strength means to eat meat or something like that and play football, and that's better than Bhagavad Gita, and better than Bhagavad Gita is watering eggplants. So people have some funny ideas, and some people in some part of the world had a funny idea like that. So one could look at that and think, whatever, strength, that is very important. And strength is important, but strength isn't the all in all. So strength is needed to utilize the hands. Otherwise, if you have no strength, or like we see that if we get super sick or weak, and then it's just like, we're just laying on the bed and then we have no energy. So we need strength to utilize the hands, to utilize different parts of the body, but specifically the hands are needed. And if there's some deficiency in that, then the strength is not, the hands are useless. And that happens if somebody gets some disease or an old age or something. Somebody may have been, a great concert pianist, but when they lose the strength in their hands or their ability to control their hands properly, then they're not able to perform all those, pieces of music that they could previously do that. And also, too, if there's some serious arthritis in the hands, then it's difficult to play the mridanga. Mridanga also, too, the hands are required to do all those complicated beats and things like that. And we see that too, like the pictures of like Lord Chaitanya and his associates. They would play the mridanga. And then also too, when we see somebody that's really expert at the mridanga, it's like pretty bewildering. It's like they do all these like crazy beats and things like that. And it's like almost like it's so what's the word I'm looking for? It's so amazing, but it's so captivating that one can also just get taken away from the actual kirtan because they're just doing so many crazy things on the mridanga. It's like, wow. I know that would happen to me sometimes. We'd be in kirtan, but the person would be, the devotee would be doing like such amazing things on the mridanga. It was just like, I'd practically like stop chanting and just stare at this person and just be like, whoa, like how's he doing that? Different things like that. And then you see too, they'll be like doing and then going like here to here like that. So anyways, so this is ultimately when one has a proper understanding, he understands that this is all the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. to utilize the hands in different ways like that, and to express the, whatever, the desire, to express what's needed to express. But, I mean, even using the hands in and of themselves isn't like an expression or some type of art form. It's generally needed for work. Also, too, it just came to mind with, I think this, I forget exactly, but this form of dance, what's this form of dance called in India? There's different types, but it starts with a B, but, anybody know? It's a specific, it's like the general dance form in India, they call, like generally the women learn it. Yeah, but, say it again? But Nayakam? I'm probably saying it wrong. Anyways, you said it, but this form of dance, and then anyways, they'll dance and then they'll use their hands and different things like that, and then there's also this other form. Anyways, they use their face and things like that, that's a big part of it. But the hands in and of themselves are needed to perform work. And so anyways, that's discussed very much so in the Bhagavad Gita. But so Srila Prabhupada opens up this purport by making the point, so he makes the point that we're never independent in any stage in life. So that's an important aspect to understand, because how many people actually realize that or understand that? Just like we're talking, people do all these amazing things with their hands, but they're thinking that, they're doing it by their own ability. And similarly too, we may also think, well, we're independent, maybe not that we're independent, but we may think that things are kind of going on by themselves, and, if we want to, go here or go there, or do this or do that or whatever, utilize our hands or body, we may think that, things are kind of just going on naturally. But we should understand that these things are going on by the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the management of the demigods. So we have some understanding of that we're not independent, but what to speak of the general populace? They don't necessarily have that knowledge or maybe have that realization about how dependent they actually are. And we can see too that that they're dependent in so many different ways, but it doesn't cross their mind how dependent they actually are. Materialistic people, because they think, well, I'm free to do this and free to do that. I'm free to, go and party. I'm free to go to whatever college I want. Just like, when I remember getting out of high school, even before that, it was like a whole big thing about like what college you're going to go to, and like, whatever. Some people were going to go out of state and to another country, so it was like a big deal. And you got to think about like what college you want to go to. You want to go like in state or out of state, and like, anyways, there's a whole discussion in and of itself. But like, you're going to waste so much money to go out of state to learn the same thing you can learn down the street. But anyways, but then it's like a big, thing, this freedom, like, and then also too, growing up in America, stressed so much about the wonderful system that a capitalist country is, because it allows freedom for economic growth and freedom for business, and then the governments, they don't reign over your business and things like that, and you're free to you're free to make as much money as you want in America. But the thing is that it's completely devoid of the idea of karma, actually, that you may be free to make as much money as you want, but it's understood that individuals, somebody may have like the karma to make, millions of dollars, but then they have the karma to spend billions. So even though they make millions, they're still in debt, and because they have a propensity to spend more than they make. And there's one famous actor. Anyways, we don't have to say his name, but like he made millions of dollars, but then he was spending crazy amounts, and he went bankrupt. But he had millions, and he was super famous and things like that. But then he would buy things like he bought like 40 vintage like useless cars that like you can't even drive. And at one point he bought like some snake for I think like $500,000 or something like that. And he was just like blowing money like crazy. And he bought an island, and then eventually he had to start selling everything because he couldn't afford it. So one may have like the karma to make millions, but then he also has the karma to spend billions. So it's not necessarily true that just because you have more freedom for economic, whatever, you have more economic opportunity that you'll be rich. And we see that also. And then there's so many things. And then there's stories of people that are rich and then they just, blow it all. Then whatever, the rags of riches, everybody loves that. Somebody that's nobody, and then they build, millions of dollars and billions. As seen with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. And then we also see too that, some people, they may not, and I saw that actually with a friend of mine growing up, that myself, I didn't really, not so much money came my way, because I didn't have a job and things like that. But I always had more money than him. And he would go and he would work a job and this and that, and then he would, every paycheck he would get, he would immediately spend it, as soon as he got it. And sometimes he would already have spent it before he before he even got the paycheck, because he'd be taking out loans and things like that, and whatever from friends and things. But I thought that was interesting growing up, that I would always see that he was always spending and he never had anything, and then his bank account was always empty, whereas at least for myself, that I barely got money, but I would always save it, and I always had more money than him, because I guess whatever, I was stingy. But it was nothing really worth buying. If I wanted something, I would get it, but most things I didn't really see a point in buying. So just some people have that karma. And so we may think, well, I'm free to do this, whatever, free to choose my education, free to choose my job, free to choose who I marry, the house I live in, all these different things. But the thing is that this is an illusion, that we're not free to do all these different things, that we're influenced by the modes of material nature and by the and by our guna, our karma, and all these different things. We're limited in what we're able to do. There's some semblance of freedom, but it's limited freedom. It's just I've heard it said, I think Prabhupada would give this example, that you're on a plane and you have some freedom to walk here, walk there, and sit here, sit there. But where that plane is going, that is determined. You can't change that. If you're on a plane from, from Atlanta to Chicago, and then midway through the flight, you start thinking, well, actually, I want to go to San Francisco. You're already on the plane. You can't, midway through flight, just switch planes in the midair. So with the material body that a living entity has, he's subjected to a certain amount of happiness and distress. And this is ultimately given by the demigods, karmana daivanit. So if you want to pull up a verse, you can, from the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know who's in charge. Chapter 13, text 22. You can just pull it up, and then I'll read it off the screen. But it is an important point to understand, actually. So this, what is this? Purusha prakati stohi bhukte prakati jan gunan karanam guru sango sarasad yoni jamasu. Then just scroll down a little bit so I can see the Sanskrit also. So living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. I always like how Prabhupada translated that at the end. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. It sounds pretty poetic. So the point is, living entity, so we come in the material world, we take a material body, and then we enjoy life, with the three modes of material nature. And so the previous life we got, it was due to our activities that we did. So then we get a particular body that suits, the desires that we had in a previous life. Just like in previous life, we may have so many things we could have desired, but we could have desired that, like in a previous life, we could have been in some other country and thinking, oh, how great it would be to live in America, this and that, and been trying in that life. And then the next life, we're born in America. So then we get to enjoy the American dream. And then within that, so we associate with the material nature, then we get a particular body, and we enjoy with those modes of material nature, and then we meet with good and evil, asat, good and evil amongst various species. And just hearing that sounds like, ooh, it don't sound good, gonna meet, I got a plan for you, I'm going to take you to the other part of town, and you're going to meet with some good and evil. It's I don't know if I want to go to that part of town. So the material world is pretty much the part of town that we shouldn't go to, and nobody wants to go to. But somehow or other, it's like the carrot on the stick, but we get tricked into going to the part of town that we don't want to be in, and then so many bad things happen in the material world. So we meet with the good and evil. And so by being in the material world and associating with material nature, material desires develop. And it's that. Anyways, there's a whole discussion in and of itself. But we have the material mind, which is conditioned, and we have the sense object. So that mutual relationship of this and this attraction of seeing the sense objects and being desires developing, and then also having the material mind, which is conditioned and wants to enjoy, further implores the living entity into a miserable condition. But the point is that, so people, they think, just like I met one man on a books years and years ago in California, and he was going on about how he was Christian and blah, 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 and like, this is what you're doing is bogus and everything. And then at one point in the conversation, he said something interesting that I never forgot. And so he was saying, he pretty much said that, like, I'm Christian because I was born in America, and if I was born in India, then I'd probably be Hindu. And I thought that was like an interesting thing. So he was attributing his religious belief just because he was born in a particular nation, which nothing to do with him taking it to heart or meditating upon it or anything. He's just like, I'm Christian because I was born in America, and if I was born in India, I'd be Hindu. And so it's his identity is based on his body. But the point is that when a person attains a particular body and he has those material desires in his heart, and then associating with that nature and with the field that he's in, and associating with that body, the jiva, he places attachment on his body, and he's attracted in certain ways. So it's not by I have a certain taste or a certain refinement, so therefore I'm attracted to a certain woman, or I was grown in this family, so therefore I'm attracted to this political work or whatever it is. It's not that you're choosing those things. You're bound by those things. Actually, when we have a material body, we're bound. We're not free. The human form of life is a chance to become free, but we're not free in and of itself. Just like somebody may be born, and they may be, just like we see these great, not great, anyways, in material spirit, but like Mozart and Beethoven and different things like that, it's easy to understand. They had, specifically Mozart, it's mentioned at such a young age, he had such proficiency in music and composing and all these different things like that. So he had an attraction from that, from a previous life, and so those desires were impelling him to take up to playing piano and composing music and all these different things like that. He was being pulled by the modes of material nature. And so it seems like, he was free to choose that. Like he had that inclination and things like that. But he wasn't free to do that because by his desires in a previous life, he cultivated that and they were pulling him in that sense. And so we may be attracted to different things. And because we're not pure devotees, these karmis and things like that, they may be attracted to some particular type of work or some whatever it is, something in the material world, and so that's based on the material platform, and that's binding, and it pulls one. But when one is on the spiritual platform, he's not pulled by the senses, because this Prabhupada makes in the purport Hrishikesha, the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord. So then one is attracted to do things by Krishna, and he's not bound in that way. So it's an important aspect to understand. And then we can understand that very simply. It's so many different ways we can understand that very simply. But generally, a man in a man's body is attracted to a woman. And it has nothing to do with, it's nothing spiritual. It's on the material platform. But the illusion is one is thinking that, I am this body, that I am a man, and I'm in this man's body, and I have attraction to a woman in a woman's body. And then the same thing, the woman's in the woman's body, and she's conditioned to think. They're both conditioned in different ways to think and behave. But each other is thinking that, I'm attracted to this person. But if we had, but generally, if like for instance, it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. So Puranjana, in the 25th chapter, he became too much attached to his wife, and so in his next birth, he took birth as a woman. So when he was a man, he was attracted to women, and then when he was a woman, he got attracted to a man. He got married to another king. Anyways, it's allegorical, but Malaya Dwaj was the king's name that Puranjana got married into. But he had that particular point, that body. So it wasn't that, that anyways, if he remembered, it probably would have been weird. But the point I'm trying to make is that that we're not free, that we're dictated by the desires of the body. And on the basis of the body, then we make choices. It's like being in a jail. In a jail, you're not free in jail. You may have the freedom to like do this and do that, but you're under control. So we're under control in the material nature, and we're influenced in so many different ways. But we can speak these things, but then people, they won't accept them, and they'll say so many things. Well, I worked so hard. I was born in the poverty part of town, and I had to, anyways, so many different things I've heard and I've seen. And I had to suffer in this way and that way, and I was oppressed, and then I broke through, and I got my education. I worked really hard. I got married, and I supported my family. I bought a house, this, that, and the other thing. So many different things that I did. And I was free to do that. I made that choice. I made the choice to go to school. I made the choice not to go to school. I made the choice to marry this person. I choose to do all these different things. Nobody told me to do those things. I'm completely independent. But we understand that, why did you choose those things? Why do you wake up in the morning and eat this thing? Well, because I like it. Why do you like it? Because it tastes good to me. Why does it taste good to you? Why is it that, bitter things taste good to you and then sweet things don't taste good to you? It's because of the particular body that you've had that has been given to you by material nature. So that is the way to understand desire and things like that. And so similarly too, then people are attracted to a particular form of work. And then that brings us to what we're talking about at the beginning of class. And then people engage their hands in different ways according to that work that they like to do. Or work they don't like to do. Because some people too, like, people that are rich or very well off or something, generally it seems like if you look at somebody's hand or something, you may see like, I don't really know exactly, but there may be like a lot of calluses or something like that, or cut up or something. You understand that this person does like heavy construction work. Or if you look at somebody's hands and it's like nice and soft and like pretty and things, and you say, oh, well, this person doesn't work so hard, or they don't use their hands or something, or maybe they're like typing on a computer all day. But a living entity is attracted to a particular type of work. And then anyways, for that type of work also, it's not existing so much nowadays, whether it's Chatur Vanya Mayashrishtam Gunakarma Bhagasa. Can you pull that verse up? That's 4:13 in the Bhagavad Gita. I always forget the last line, but I think that's important for what I'm trying to make now. So, and then the Sanskrit. So, tasya kartam apimam vidya kartaram avyayam. So scroll down, just let me read the rest. So, okay, so anyway, so the particular work. So, and although I'm the creator of the system, anyways, you should know me, know that I am yet the non-doer being unchangeable. So I thought it was another point made. But anyways, Krishna explains in multiple points in the Bhagavad Gita that he engages in work and activities just to teach others, that he doesn't have to work, but he works for the benefits of others. And so work has to be there in the material world. We're forced to work. It's not that nobody can just like not work. People have to work or engage in some type of activities. So that's there and that's needed. Just change pace a little bit. I was listening to, on the topic of work, I was listening to Bhakti Vikas Maharaj class the other day. He made a nice point actually that was like, and it's something I've kind of been like thinking about and realizing. So anyways, he gave, I don't know if it's like a story or what, but he was relating that there was like a man and he lived in a village in India and he grew some crops. And, he would go with some crops and work somewhat in the day, and then he would take like a cart to town once a week, and then he would sell his goods. And so he was kind of like, he was working, but he wasn't really working that hard, and like, kind of living a simple life. He would do a little bit of work in the fields and then go out and then sell it. And so one man, probably some Westerner or something, saw him and said like, oh, like, what are you doing? Like, like you're barely working and like you're just like making just like a little bit of money and like, like what are you doing with your life? And he's like, oh, I'm just like go to the fields and I do this and do that. And like, yeah, it's a pretty simple life. And he was like, like you could be making like so much money. And then he gave him like a whole like business plan, where they were joking and talk about like 10X. You weren't here for that whole thing. You know what 10X is? I don't really know what it is either. And I'll eat Krishna here, but I guess the idea is that you increase your profits by like 10% each year. Is that the idea? Or? It's wrong.
Whatever goal you have, 10x that.
Oh, financial wise or just like anything?
Yeah, financial.
Oh, okay. So.
Make $1 million, make it 10 million.
Okay, there you go. Okay, well, that's even crazier. That's like not realistic at all. I thought 10%. Anyways. So it's like, yeah, so anyway, so that, and it's like, I was like, 10X it, man, like, you just, you're like barely making any money, like, and so he was like giving him like some financial advice that like, you're barely working, you like come out once a week. What you should do is like, you should take a loan, and then like you should buy so much more land, and then like, get like triple, quadruple, 10X that land, and then, put out 10X more crops, and you'll make 10 times as much, and you'll work 10 times as harder. And so you do that, you take that loan, and then you work hard for like, 5-10 years, so you can like pay back that loan that you took off, and then that way, like, you'll make a lot of money. And then once you finally paid off all that loan, and then for the next 10 years, you work harder, you'd work just as hard, so then you can make like a mass amount of profit, so that in 20, 30 years, you can retire, and then the guy was like, yeah, enjoy. So the guy was like, well, what do I do when I retire? He's like, well, when you retire, you don't work as hard anymore. You get to relax and like chill out a bit. And he's like, well, I'm already doing that now. So the point, but then that's what people think, that, you have to work hard, you can make a lot of money, achieve financial freedom. You just like, whatever, put your nose to the grinding mortar for like, work hard for so many years, and then like you enjoy. But like what I realized, actually, I was thinking the other day that in the West, in America, land of the free, home of the brave, is that there's so much facility to live an easy life materially and to get things done easily. Like very, if you want to go to the store, whatever, you just got to get your car that you pay your insurance on, and you got to pay for the gas, and you got to get the job so you can pay for the car. Anyways, so you take your car, and it's very convenient, and you drive to the grocery store, which is conveniently which you can't walk to. And then you get your groceries, and of course you need the car for the groceries, so you can't carry all those groceries. And then you bring it back home, and then you need a refrigerator to store all those groceries, because they're going to go bad if you don't have the refrigerator, unless you live off canned goods, which is completely unhealthy. So it's just the point is that there's all these conveniences in society to live materially and to make life easy. But what I've understood is that all these things are there, but actually there's really not much time to do anything. Your time is just so caught up in all these conveniences. You have the convenience, of whatever, you don't have to hand wash your clothes, and you got the nice gas, whatever. Natural gas, as Atlanta's, they got that company, whatever, Atlanta Gas. Anyways, so you have the gas, and then you have the water, but then to like maintain this whole system of life, you have to work like anything, and you're forced to work like anything. Then we come back to it, then how free are you? You're so free that you have to work, 40, 50, 60 hours a week just to maintain this system of life. Because there's no option, there's no alternative. Just like this cell phone, for instance. I don't want a cell phone, but I have to have the cell phone. Why do I have to have the cell phone? Because it's, anyways, we live in the ashram, but in some ways you need it. Because without WhatsApp, we could never manage a temple nowadays. And previous times, there was like a chalkboard or a whiteboard, and then they would write the services on that. Anyways, I'm just making a point. I have no criticism against temple management on WhatsApp, for the record, in case they're watching me. But it's like, that's how it has to be done. You have to, anyways, and there's so many different things. And then, you need the phone, just like previous, I grew up without a cell phone for like so many years. I got a cell phone when I was like 18 or 19 or something. And then I got a smartphone. I moved into the Brahmacharya ashram because, anyways, you need it for like Square and like book distribution. So that, you need the cell phone. But then it's just like you're forced to, because then if you want to like, anyways, nowadays, unless you grew up in the town, you won't know where the heck you're going if you need to go somewhere. Just like, somebody one time was giving me directions, and was just like, yeah, you make a right on this street, then make a right on that street, and you make a left, and you keep going a couple lights, and then you get on the highway, and then you get off on this exit, and you go down, then on the left, like you'll see whatever, like this, it was like the Jiffy Lube or something like that. I was like, man, just give me the address on the phone. I was like, we don't do that anymore. But back in my hometown where I'm from, it's like, yeah, I know like everything. Like I like tell like, whatever, like on this street, this is where I am, and then whatever, you go down the street and go left, and then the high school's on the right, and you make a left on whatever, and you go straight, and then to the gas station, that's where my friend grew up, down there on the other side, on this street, and then the dentist is there, and then you want to go this part of town, you go like, it's like I grew up there. But it's like you need the phone, like this Google Maps to go everywhere. I remember when I first started doing traveling Sankirtan, I got a smartphone, But like the devotees gave me like a map of the United States of America. So I had like this huge map in the car. I mean, it folded up, but that was like, they were thinking I would need to use that because that's what they used to use. And there's so many different things. And then like, whatever. I mean, I don't see them nowadays, but like payphones, I remember using payphones growing up, like needing to make a call. But like nowadays it's just like, and then even too, before, when I first was going to India, there wasn't this WhatsApp and things like that. But anyways, you had like some phone and then you could use it and you could make calls to America and then whatever. You like put so many rupees on it and then you got charged like, anyways, you could like call them that way. But the point is that with all these conveniences and things like that, I've realized that time isn't actually saved. There isn't more time because you did have to work so hard. I mean, it's like, to get a house is like, generally if you get like a cheap house, it's like you have to pay at least like $300,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of years of just working, for a house. And then you need the car and all these things too. And then it's like practically like you need like millions of dollars just to like live in society, like in the long term, like you have to make. So it's a trick. You're not free and you don't save time actually. But anyways, people, they don't think about these things and they think, well, I'm very free and this and that. And I have, I do this and do that and I'm enjoying life and I'm so happy, but it's not free. You don't save time in such ways. So, but the main point of all of this is that, so the senses are given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the demigods are they're the managers in that. And so the proper way of using the senses is to engage them in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if we don't understand these things, then we have an atheistic worldview, and then we think things happen by chance, or then we're free and we do this and we can do that, and it doesn't matter, what my body, my choice, I do what I want. And anyways, I won't chant the slokas that they chant. But we think that we're free in that sense. I do what I want, I go where I want to go, and if I want to kill, what's in my body, I can kill, because there's no reaction for that, because it's not alive, it's dead. And if I want, whatever, if I want to hurt somebody, I can hurt somebody. If I want to lie, steal, all these things, I don't have to suffer for that. What we can see actually, that it's mentioned in different parts in Shastra. Different things are given. If one misuses, astrology, Jyotish, which is seen as the eye of the Vedas, if one misuses that, and there's a lot of ways that people can misuse astrology, we won't go into that, but if one misuses that, one may be born blind, or I've heard if you mislead people, you'll be born blind. So you're born with the senses, what is hampered or handicapped according to activities that we do in a previous life. So if someone's born blind, it's understood that someone, if we understand the Vedas, then it's understood that they did something to be in a previous life to be born blind, so they're being handicapped in this life. Just like if you go, I don't know if they actually do this, but I used to see in cartoons in prisons, they would like have a prisoner and then they would have a ball and a chain, so they'd be chained to like some heavy weight, so like whatever, they couldn't like run fast or whatever, or like they were handicapped, physically handicapped. So the idea is that person is being punished, so they're being limited, and they can't, they can't jump or whatever. Anyways, it's a big inconvenience to have some 50-pound ball dragging against you. So, but we can understand. So, if a prisoner, he's in this condition where his senses are weakened or restricted, then we can understand, for this simple example, that somebody did that to him. It wasn't that he just woke up one day and then he had like this inconveniences upon him, but somebody did that to him, and that's a punishment. It's not free, he's restricted. He had this freedom, previously, and then he did something to he misused that freedom, and then similarly he was punished. So all living entities in the material world are punished, but some are punished more than others according to the activities that they do. If someone is a pious criminal, then they get more facility within the jail. If someone is, more rascally, then they get more restrictions in the jail. But whether one has full freedom in the prison or full restriction in the prison, one is still in the prison. Just because one's a first-class prisoner doesn't mean that's a good position. So, but the point is that, so we can understand with this prisoner that has this ball and chain, somebody put that there. So similarly, when we look out upon the world and we see somebody is blind or somebody's missing a hand or somebody can't walk or whatever it is, something happened in a previous life to which that individual was in that situation. And so they're being punished. And so that subtle laws of material nature, the demigods are administering that. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead set those rules, karmana daivanetrena. They're under his supervision. So the point is that we are not independent. Everybody is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Some realize it and some don't. But being intelligent, we should understand the verdict of Shastra that we are independent, that we are dependent, that we are dependent, and utilize the minute independence that we have in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus engage the senses and the different functions in his glorification and in his service. So, I guess I'll stop there. I could say more things about Indra and things like that, but anyways, we'll just stop if there's any questions or comments about anything. Yeah, Abhimanyu.
That's what I said, even recall.
Oh, Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You can go ahead. You can go ahead,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Yeah, Kalki Prabhu, one point, is that Bhima also was a disciple of Duryodhana in mace fighting.
Say it again?
Yeah.
Was a disciple of Duryodhana.
Bhima was a disciple of Duryodhana?
In mace fighting.
What's he saying?
He didn't hear you.
Why don't you give him the phone?
Bhima was a disciple of Duryodhana?
In mace fight. No, of Balarama.
Oh, okay.
Bhima was a disciple of Balarama in mace fighting.
Oh, okay.
Also. So that's one of the reasons why Balarama also didn't decide to fight in the Mahabharata war, because both of them were his disciples.
Yeah.
He didn't want to side with one over the other.
Yeah.
But, Duryodhana had more technique and Bhima had more strength.
Yeah.
And another thing, really important thing, you're talking about hands today, this very important verse in the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada comments on 10.2.37.
Kriyasu.
Where Kriyasu is a very, very important. The word Kriyasu, meaning by manual labor or by work, is important in this verse. One should engage in practical service to the Lord. In our Krishna consciousness movement, all our activities are concentrated upon distributing Krishna literature. This is very important. One may approach any person and induce him to read Krishna literature so that in the future he also may become a devotee. Such activities are recommended as well. Kriyasu yat tvat charanaravindayo. Such activities will always remind the devotees of the Lord, so to speak. By fully concentrating on distributing books, one is fully absorbed in Krishna. This is samadhi. So I was thinking, the work with the hand, Kriyashu, manual labor. We just, it's so important, for us to use our hands in the Lord's service. I was thinking about that also. And and Guru Maharaj says so in regards to this, so many unnecessary necessities,
Yeah.
The maps, you have to have this, you have to have the phone, you have to have this, you have to have that, there's so many crazy things, and, what's the whole point of it all? People are still more miserable than they've ever been. Yeah, anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You have something? Oh, I guess you have the mic? You have something, right?
It's just a small comment, but this point of not having any independence within this material world, it reminded me of when I graduated high school and there was a point where I was trying to get into the military, and I just had this desire to go on the other side of the planet, and just leave everything, just be free or whatever, and you know, they make in the military. They make so many promises. You know, like you'll get like good health insurance.
Yeah.
You're gonna have like room and board. You're gonna have like, you know, with this job you're gonna get like 60K. You know, like first year or something like that. You know, and like it's like pretty promising. But then the more you get involved within that sphere, you realize like the catches that come with that, you know, like I was just like, it took me a while because I was moving a lot, but then you find out different things, like for instance, like like even though you're out the military 5 years after you're out, you still can be called back in for like war, and then like COVID was around that time. It was like, yeah, you're gonna have to take the COVID vaccine, and then like you know, and of course, it's like. The military is like kind of like a predicament for like a conditioned soul, because like in one sense they're trying to restrict sense gratification. Like you can't like do like smoke marijuana. You can't like do certain things on the base. Like some place you can't even bring the opposite gender into your thing. But like it doesn't have like the remedy for like curing the material desire. So what happens is people, they join in the military, but they're still trying to figure out ways to like enjoy while in that restricted situation.
Yeah.
And then that, you know, I was like Googling things like, how can I like get intoxicated, you know, while I'm in the military? And there's ways for doing that, but if you get caught, and then you go to like military jail, which is apparently worse than like regular prison, you know. And so ultimately it's like, it just made me think how the idea of being free, they make so many promises, but you put yourself in such a predicament where you're even more dependent, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just the material world. There's so many like promises about independence, but that so-called independence leaves you more dependent, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple things about that. I remember when we were in New York, I always wanted to go and try to like do programs. Anyways, I didn't really have any freedom, but but I always wanted to go and do programs. There was like some type of like army base or school or something like that, like close to the military school. I don't know if it was army or what branch, but close to like New York. I always wanted to go there. It was in like New Jersey. I remember it was like where it was on the map. I always wanted to go there. I remember distributing books to at some like what's it called, military college. But anyways, one of my friends, he joined the military, and anyway, that's a whole story in and of itself. But he was telling me one time when I talked to him, maybe some months ago, but he was telling me how like he was in the army for some time, and he went here and went there, and he said that they gave an option, either like you could live in like this big fancy house, or you can live like in a simpler house and like you just get more money. And he's like, I'm gonna take the big house. And then he just like enjoyed like anything, like in that big house and just like whatever. But like one thing that happened too is, I mean, he was in the military, and then like he got messed up a lot like physically. So he has like some back problem, I think, or something like that. He had to be discharged actually. So that happens also. But anyways, people that are going into the military with like the idea of like getting free from material desires is like probably far and few between.
Yeah.
But anyways, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, you're more or less just a complete slave.
Yeah,
You know.
that stuff is very restricting.
Yeah, people, as much as people love independence, like going into the military is like the worst thing to do. if you have
Yeah,
independence, you know?
I know a lot of, well, not a lot of people, but I know a couple of people that were in the military, and they have some crazy stories.
Yeah.
So I never want to be in the military.
Question online.
Yeah.
How does Krishna consciousness change that karma is given that blind men can see, the lame can climb mountains, etc.?
So Krishna consciousness changes karma in the sense of, I mean, it may not, Krishna consciousness, if we're blind and we practice Krishna consciousness, it may not be that after practicing Krishna consciousness then we can see again. It's not like some miracle thing like that. But Krishna consciousness changes karma in the sense that due to our particular body, we may have been attracted to particular sense objects or whatever, a particular type of work, and by engaging in Krishna consciousness, that desire changes. And so where we were headed previously due to our particular karma activities, before taking to Krishna consciousness it was ultimately going to be a material destination. But by taking to Krishna consciousness, the main thing is that we're no longer bound by reaction and action. There's something called a karma, which means it's activities done which don't produce results. So then the point is that by engaging Krishna consciousness, that we're no longer bound to the material world and forced to accept a material body. So, all right. Any questions from the Matajis? We got a question.
On the topic of that question about, karma when we come into Krishna consciousness, I've been wondering, like, when we come to Krishna consciousness, then we're no longer, like, accumulating karma, but then say if someone takes the Krishna consciousness and has to take another body because of, like, desires that are there that haven't necessarily, like, gone away, then when they take on a new body, does that, what am I trying to say? Like, the karma that was stopped when they came to Krishna consciousness, does that then carry with them to the next body?
Yeah. So karma is intricate and difficult to understand, and probably only a few understand it, like Yamaraj and maybe Paramatma. So from what I've understood is that when we take to Krishna consciousness, it's like generally the example is given of a fan, that you unplug it and it still kind of like spins a little bit. But so there's like some semblance of like karma there. And then there's also that verse in the Brahma Samhita. What is that? I forget it exactly. But that, anyways, but the point is that when we engage in devotional service, that pulls the plug out. And so there may be some semblance there. Now, it's to be understood that when a devotee surrenders the Supreme Personality of Godhead and takes initiation and gives his life to the Sankirtan movement, to the spiritual master, to Krishna consciousness, that Krishna takes charge of that devotee's life. So the point being is that that individual may take another birth or different things may happen, but it's not under the jurisdiction of just like material nature anymore. It's specifically that person's under the guidance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in that point, Krishna is personally influenced is personally involved in an individual's life. So that person may take birth. Like for instance, that person may take birth in America or take birth in Europe or something, and then they grow up in that particular country. But then Krishna makes an arrangement for that individual to come in contact with devotees in the Sankirtan movement. And so that if that's not a result of someone's karma, it's being specifically arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is specifically devotional service. What's this? Sukriti. But the Sukriti in the sense of devotional Sukriti, not just mundane pious Sukriti. So when the devotee surrenders the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then there's no more karma like how it was previously. And so whatever happens above and beyond that point, it's Krishna's mercy. And we can see that too, the instance with that's cited. There's many, but with Bharat Maharaj, that he was engaged in devotional service, and then due to his independence, he misused that a little bit, and then he was punished, and so he took the birth as the body of a deer. And so within that deer's body, he recognized his fault, and so that punishment rectified him. And then so in his next life, that was given more fuel for the fire, so to say, and inspired him to be more serious in Krishna consciousness. And it's a couple thoughts on that subject.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Still along those same lines, I know in previous classes it was mentioned that, like, if a devotee has to come back into like the material world, then their spiritual master has to come and get them, which from my understanding, I could be wrong, it means that, like, say if I were to be born into another body, then I would have to take initiation again. So I guess I know Krishna takes like control of our lives once we get initiated in this life, but then if that initiation then has to happen again in the next life, then I guess I'm trying to understand like what that process is. Is the previous initiation like null and void? Is that clear?
I'm not so qualified to speak on this so much because I don't really understand it. But I mean, I wouldn't say if someone takes initiation in this life or whatever, or in the life, and then he doesn't complete his Krishna consciousness, he has to take birth again, And, I mean, it's probably understood he would take initiation in the same parampara, so that instructions and all those things would be there, but it's not like one is like cut himself off from like his previous spiritual master. And exactly how that would manifest, I mean, is it the same spiritual master? For instance, like it's probably safe to say that some of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, they didn't complete their Krishna consciousness life and maybe took birth again and joined the Krishna conscious movement again. So obviously they're not going to get initiated by Srila Prabhupada, they'll get initiated by a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. But the thing is that mercy is still there from Prabhupada, that they're coming to Krishna consciousness and they're engaging in the Sankirtan movement, and they have affinity for Krishna consciousness and for Prabhupada's teachings and of like that, and following Krishna consciousness seriously. They have attraction to the pure devotional principles, to this, what is this, Anyabilasita Sunyam, to this beej, this seed, and they're maintaining that. Another thing popped into my mind also, but the spiritual master too, it's like Srila Prabhupada mentions that like he took like that this man told him to make books that would last longer than magazines, and he took that as an instruction of the spiritual master. So the spiritual master may like manifest within the disciple's life in different ways. So that's also something to consider. But if one is born in this material world and was practicing Krishna consciousness previously, that individual has to get initiated because that's the system of Krishna consciousness. So anyways, it's like a complex thing, but one isn't cut off from the spiritual master just because one has to take birth again, or whatever. So, yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srimad Bhagavatam ki.